you are aware that in your course manual, every topic involves some kind of practical applications. That's bringing real life situations into the topic, how to apply that particular topic in real life situation. So here we are going to apply indices in solving some real life situation problems. Now, the idea of indices is applicable in the determination of so many problems in so many fields. Example, we can apply indices in solving investment earnings, radioactive decays, inflation, population, number of computers infected by virus, etc., etc. But for the sake of time, we will limit ourselves to investment earnings and then radioactive decay. Investment earnings and radioactive decay. Now, let me give a real life situation. Let's say you put in a certain amount into business. You are expected, or it is your expectation, that by the end of a certain period, you have acquired an amount in addition to the amount you put into your investment. That's what we call the interest. So in this case, that's your earnings after putting in a certain amount, the amount that you will get in addition to the amount you put in. That's what we call the investment earnings. And normally the amount you put in is what we call the principal. And the earnings that you will get in addition to what you put the principal is what we call the interest. And at the end of the day, the amount, the principal plus the interest is what we normally call the amount. That's your total take home. Now, let's say in every investment, don't forget there's an associate interest rate. Of course, you can't just go and put your money in the bank just for putting there or for keeping sick. It will not be used. But because the bank will also be adding certain amount within certain periods of time, that's why we are at times convinced to put our money there. So in this case, let the interest rate be R. And let the principal be P. Now, this is the interest rate, and this is normally given in percentage. That the R is normally given in percentage. Now, to calculate your real value, to calculate the real value of the interest, we normally multiply the interest rate by the principal. So in this case, the interest rate by the principal, that will be what? PR. This is just for introduction sake. So this PR will be the interest value, that's the value of the interest. And don't forget, the interest always accumulates within certain given periods. Maybe the investor can tell you that if you put in this amount, at the end of the year, you are going to get this interest in addition to your principal. So let's say we started with an amount P, with the hope that by the end of the year, we will get an interest of PR in addition to the principal. So let the amount that we will get at the end of the first year be P1. So that's the principal at the end of the first year. Let P1 be the principal at the end of the first year. Don't forget, here it is termed as the principal at the end of the third year because it is hoped that at the end of the first year, you will not end there. The amount that you will get, you will reinvest it for the second year. And so, but if you just take it at the end of the first year, you will take it home without reinvesting, then it will be your amount. That's your take-home amount. So at the end of the first year, that's P1, your principal will be equal to the principal that you started with, that's P, plus the interest, that's the PR. Then with this, when we factorize out P, we will end up getting P into bracket 1 plus R. So you note that what is inside the bracket is raised to the power 1. And the power exponent 1 is in correspondence with the number of year. So for the first year, is R plus 1 raised to the first year power. In the same way, don't forget, for the interest, it doesn't change, it's constant. It will only change, the interest rate doesn't change, it is constant. It is only the interest that changes, but that is based on the principal. So let's say from here, at the end of the first year, you want to reinvest for the second year. And with this, if we want to find the principal at the end of the second year, let that one be P2. That P sub 2. It will be your principal you generated, or the amount you earn at the end of the first year, plus the interest rate at the end of the first year. So in this case, it will be P1. You know, if we are to, this is the principal you invested at the beginning of the what? Second year. Then at the end of the second year, if you are to calculate the interest rate, that one too will be what? P1 times, sorry, if you are to calculate your interest, that one will be P1 times the interest rate, that's PR. So in fact, we are going to get the principal at the end of the second year will be P1 plus P1R. And with this, you can go ahead and say it will be P1, we factorize P1 out. Then what will be inside will be 1 plus R. But we shouldn't forget that from the calculation of the principal at the end of the first year, we had P1 to be equal to P times 1 plus R, bracket close, or into bracket. So what it means is that in place of P1, we can substitute P times 1 plus R. So this will be P times 1 plus R times 1 plus R. At the end of the first year, you were expected to get the principal, that's you were expected to get the principal or an amount P1. And as I've already explained, when you want to invest it for the second time or and so on, we call it the principal. But when you are taking it home, without investing, it is no more principal, it is an amount that you've gotten. So in this case, if let's say you want to invest your earnings plus your principal, original principal, at the end of the second year, you want to invest that one into the the second year, then what happens is that we will end up getting our P2, that is the principal you are expected to generate at the end of the second year. And this will be equal to the principal that you started with at the beginning of the second year plus your interest at the end of the second year. And don't forget, the interest is always calculated by multiplying the corresponding principal by the interest rate. And don't forget, the corresponding principal for the second year is P1. In this case, our interest will be P1 times R. Then with this, we factorize out, you see that P is common here, P1 is common here, and P1 is common here. So we factorize out P1, then we will end up getting P1 times 1 plus R. But the principal at the end of the at the end of the first year is the P1, and it is also expressed as P times 1 plus R. So in effect, we substitute P times 1 plus R into the second year's investment. And this we will end up getting P 1 plus R times 1 plus R. That's P times 1 plus R, bracket close, times 1 plus R. So, what do we see here? We see that the 1 plus R and 1 plus R are the same. So, in effect, we are multiplying indices of the same base. It's just like you are saying you have A times A. You end up getting A raised to the power 2. So from the laws of the what? From the product law of indices, we add what? The exponent. The same thing applies here. So here, let's say the 1 plus R is taken as A, and this 1 plus R is taken as A. So they all have exponent of what? 1. So when you add the exponents, you end up getting 2. So you end up getting P times 1 plus R, all raised to the power 2. Then let's say you want to make another investment in the 3rd year. You want to make another investment in the 3rd year. So by this time, once it is in the 3rd year, we'll be expected to earn P3. That's a principal at the end of the 3rd year. And this will be the principal at the beginning of the 3rd year plus the interest at the end of the 3rd year. So it will be P2 because it's what we earned at the end of the 2nd year that we reinvested in the 3rd year. So it will be P2 plus the principal at the end of the 3rd year, which will be P2 times R. Plus the interest at the end of the 3rd year, which is P2 times R. Then factorizing out P2 as usual, you get P2 then into bracket 1 plus R. As I said, the principal for the 3rd year will be the principal for the 2nd year plus the interest generated at the end of the 2nd year, which is P2 plus P2R. And factorizing now the P2, you end up getting P2 bracket open 1 plus R. Then we know from above that P2 is equal to P times R plus 1 plus R all raised to the power 2. So substituting that into the principal for the 3rd year, we will end up getting P times one plus R raised to the power 2 all times 1 plus R. Then with this, you can see that we've gotten something like A raised to the power 2 times A. Then from the laws of indices, that's the first law. Whenever you are multiplying indices of the same base, you add the exponent. Hence, we will end up getting P3 being equal to P times 1 plus R all raised to the power 3. So you see that if you are to invest for 2 years, at the end of the second year, it will be P, that's the principal you started with from the first year, times 1 plus R, that's the interest rate, all raised to the power 2. So you see that the time at the end of investment, or the time of investment, is always raised to the power, or is expressed as the exponent of 1 plus the rate of interest. Then you multiply by the principal. So in effect, that's in general, if you are to invest for T number of years, then it is expected that your principal will be PT, which is the principal you started with times 1 plus R raised to the power T. That's the time of investment. So if you are to invest for 10 years, then it will be P10, it being equal to P times 1 plus R, all raised to the power 10. And you see that since they are all in index form, it's an application of what? Indices.